Part 87. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 862. Chapter 862 Is he a pig? I can't understand this. It's fine if it's close, but if it's far away, then they have to take a car, which is another expense. Moreover, we can't always let Xiaowu spend money. After all, he is enjoying the reward for killing the evil spirit. No, he had to think of a way to make money. Suchen thought hard until he fell asleep, but he still couldn't think of a way to make money. Because he couldn't think of a way to make money, Suchen didn't sleep well all night. In a daze, someone pulled him out of bed. Xiaowu, who was on the other bed, was also carried from the quilt to the training ground. "Someone pull me. Let me go," Xiaowu shouted in a daze. Xiaowu was a little angry because he was being pulled, but he couldn't break away as he was still awake, so he could only let the person hold him on the ground. "I felt so sleepy that after my body was placed on the ground, I wanted to fall asleep again. Oops. It hurts." The quilt was still on the ground, but Suchen was different. His elbow poked the ground, and the pain in his arm made him wake up immediately. Xiaowu, who was still dozing off, heard Suchen's shout and woke up. He suddenly stood up from the ground and quickly came to Suchen's side. "Suchen, are you okay?" "It's okay, it just hurts a little bit after knocking." After confirming that Suchen's arm was fine, Xiaowu and Suchen raised their heads and looked at the two culprits angrily. "What are you doing if you don't sleep so early in the morning?" Zhang changed his appearance from yesterday. Now Zhang really looks like a coach. Why do we say they resemble each other instead of they are? Because he is too thin and looks even thinner compared to the curator next to him. When they saw the curator with his arms folded and a serious face on the side, Suchen and Xiaowu stood up obediently. Zhang felt a little angry when he saw their situation. He glanced at them and turned away. "Remember, from now on, training starts at 5 o'clock every morning, if I find you are late." Having said this, the curator kicked the sandbag on the side, and the sandbag was kicked away in an instant. This was an absolute shock. Suchen and Xiaowu were terrified. They were people who knew current affairs. They immediately nodded to the curator to show that they understood. "Why are you still standing here?" The curator turned his head and kicked Zhang, who had been standing aside, was immediately kicked to the ground. From his ferocious face, Suchen and Xiaowu could tell that it hurt. Zhang was originally dissatisfied and didn't expect that the curator would kick him. Unexpectedly, the first time he trained to establish his authority, the curator actually took advantage of him. "Zhang, do you think that one kick was not enough and you want another one?" The curator saw Zhang lying on the ground in pain, and he felt dissatisfied. "Today is the first day of training for new students. Can't we get a good start?" After Zhang listened to the director's words, he immediately retreated 1 meter. He didn't want to be hit again. The director didn't say that he would use the kick just now. He exerted 10 points of strength, at least 8 points, because that kick made him feel sore as never before. However, seeing the curator just waiting for him, he didn't know why. "Idiot! Stand over here." The curator looked at the confused Zhang and wanted to beat him up in his heart. Yes. Is he a pig? I can't understand this. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 863. Chapter 863, Choosing Vegetables, Can It Also Be Called Exercise? The curator was very helpless. Since Zhang couldn't understand, he could only point at Suchen and Xiaowu while gritting his teeth and speaking out. "Stand over?" When he heard the curator say those words, Zhang was extremely depressed. Stand over? Why should he stand over? He is the coach. Looking at the glaring eyes of the curator, Although Jiang Qi complained in his heart, he did not dare to refute. I can only respond weakly. Director, I am the coach. As soon as Jiang Qi said these words, the director, who was staring at him, suddenly froze. He looked at Jiang Qi, then at Su Chen and Xiao Wu, with a hint of embarrassment on his face. Oh, does the morning run still need to be divided into coaches and students? As a curator, I still have to train. The 50 laps of the morning run have begun. The curator said these words bravely, and Jiang Qi had no choice but to standing beside Su Chen. The group started running in the training hall. After a circle, the curator stopped. Didn't we agree to do morning exercises together? Now we have finished one lap. Xiao Wu muttered in a low voice, venting his dissatisfaction. But what he said was still heard by the curator. I am the curator, you are the curator? Do you understand the rules? You are the curator, you are right? Su Chen muttered in a low voice, ignoring Jiang Qi in the front and Xiao Wu in the back. Amused. Logically speaking, Jiang Qi shouldn't laugh, but considering the inexplicable kick he received before, he couldn't help but laugh. Of course, only Jiang Qi, Su Chen, and Xiao Wu were left in the training ground, because it was time for the curator to go shopping. After all, in order for his bun shop to survive for a long time, ensuring safe ingredients was the top priority. He had to do the shopping himself. In fact, the training ground is not very big, the distance of 50 laps is only 10 kilometers, and they finished it quickly. Su Chen and Xiao Wu thought they would be done after running 50 laps, but they didn't expect that there was an even more fatal thing waiting for them. Why did you just finish running? It's so slow. I've already done all the shopping. Come all over. Coach Zhang, why did the curator ask us to come over? Su Chen had an ominous premonition in his heart. He tugged on Zhang Kai's sleeve and asked. Jiang Qi has been in a bad mood since this morning. Now that Su Chen said Coach Zhang, he felt a little comforted. Jiang Qi looked at Su Chen and Xiao Wu with serious eyes and answered the question. The curator needs us. If we don't go over immediately, then he doesn't know who he will kick next. After Jiang Qi finished speaking, he immediately ran towards the kitchen. Without hearing the real answer to the question, Su Chen and Xiao Wu initially thought it was Jiang Qi who was trying to scare them. However, when they saw Jiang Qi running into the kitchen, Su Chen and Xiao Wu looked at each other and quickly followed. After all, they still can't figure out the curator's temper, and they don't want to be beaten. However, when Su Chen and Xiao Wu walked into the kitchen, they were dumbfounded by the curator and Jiang Qi inside. The two grown men were choosing dishes. Jiang Qi seemed harmonious, but the curator was much more awkward. He has strong muscles and sits on a small green plastic bench. Su Chen and Xiao Wu were both worried that the bench would be destroyed by him in the next second. What are you still doing? Come and exercise. The curator looked at Su Chen and Xiao Wu, who were stunned at the door, and raised his eyebrows angrily. Exercise. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 864. Chapter 864, Keep working hard next time. Su Chen and Xiao Wu walked to them unnaturally, each took a small bench and sat down. Jiang Qi handed a handful of celery to Su Chen, then picked up a handful of leeks and handed them to Xiao Wu. You must choose the vegetables on your hands cleanly in the shortest possible time, free of dead leaves and insects. Xiao Wu held the leek in his hand with a look of disbelief on his face. You should know that he never eats leek, but when Jiang Qi handed it to him, he was too embarrassed to throw it away. Coach Jiang, what kind of exercise is choosing vegetables? We might as well go for a run. What do you know? Choosing vegetables is to train your eyesight and quick hands. If your enemy is right in front of you, but if your speed is not up to you, even if you are better than the opponent can easily escape. As Zhang Qi explained, he quickly tore off the bad parts of the spinach in his hand. Be careful. At this speed, the enemy cannot escape. Xiao Wu stared at Su Chen with speechless eyes, and Su Chen nodded to express comfort. Su Chen didn't want to choose the food, but Zhang Kai's words were not bad either. Just like last time on the abandoned second floor, they chased that one many times but failed to kill it. In the final analysis, their speed was too slow. It would also be good if choosing vegetables could train their speed and reaction ability. It is this exercise method that easily makes people question it. Because the curator and Zhang Qi were both there, Su Chen didn't say anything. He just gave Xiao Wu a look of affirmation. The two stopped talking and both lowered their heads to choose their dishes. With great difficulty, all the dishes purchased by the curator were selected. Then it was time to wash vegetables, cut vegetables, and make buns. The four of them worked hard all morning, and finally wrapped the buns and steamed them. Everyone did a great job, and will continue to work hard next time, the curator said happily, looking at the steamer. The curator was happy, but Su Chen and Xiao Wu were not happy. They get up in the morning and call it exercise, but they do a lot of things that have nothing to do with exercise. The curator really regarded them as waiters, they were here for training. Su Chen became even more angry when he thought that he had no money. Curator, how are our wages calculated? What did you say? Why do you have the nerve to ask for wages? All this you do is to train you. If you were elsewhere, you wouldn't have these opportunities to exercise. Regarding Emperor Qian's affairs, Su Chen would not be vague or tolerant, after all, he did not. Su Chen looked at the curator and curled his lips with contempt. Curator, you are not mistaken. This, you have the nerve to call it exercise, what is it that exercises us? Is it training us on how to be a qualified waiter in a steamed bun restaurant? After Su Chen finished speaking, he saw the curator's face became serious, and he began to feel uneasy. After all, anyone would feel uncomfortable being stared at coldly by a burly man. But Su Chen held it back. After all, the truth is on his side, and it should be the curator who is at fault. Thinking of this, Su Chen raised his head, his eyes a little more hard. When the curator arrived, he was amused by Su Chen's change, as if he was joking. Looking at Su Chen, there was a hint of cunning in his eyes. The curator was about to say something to Su Chen, but at this time, Xiao Wu stood in front of Su Chen. What's going on with you, two children? You are here to learn, and as coaches, of course we hope that the students will achieve results. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 865. Chapter 865. The evil spirit hiding behind you. After all, with people spreading the word like this, we can be considered a pretty good fish restaurant. More students will come. With the skills we have learned in making buns, can we beat others? Xiao Wu's face was full of contempt. Logically speaking, he shouldn't do this, but if he wants to bully Su Chen, he won't allow it. The curator looked at Xiao Wu, who suddenly appeared, and smiled. Xiao Wu, are you questioning our teaching methods? Still feeling wronged? Maybe other martial arts schools won't let you do this, but can they guarantee that you will succeed in learning in the shortest time? Although Xiao Wu was angry, what the gym director said was right, and it was true. Other martial arts gyms, not to mention that they cannot guarantee that they will succeed in their studies, even if they are given some formal training courses, it is just a show. Nice looking embroidered fists and embroidered legs. Indeed, it is not as reliable as the guarantee from Speed Martial Arts School. Xiao Wu didn't know how to refute and looked helplessly at Su Chen. Su Chen understood and blurted out an indifferent sentence. Your promises are indeed tempting, but if you want us to believe you, you have to come up with something practical, instead of making us believe in a few empty promises. After all, we will learn nothing by then, and you won't really refund the tuition. After listening to Suchen's words, the curator looked at Zhang Qi with an angry face. Zhang Qi immediately looked fawning. How could it be possible to learn nothing? As long as you follow our teachings, your decision will be successful. Because we dare to make such a guarantee, we also have successful examples. For example, I have only been a teacher for a month. Look at my skills, they are not bad. Zhang Qi said as he performed a few impromptu moves in the kitchen. Although there were many things in the kitchen, and Zhang Kai's movements opened and closed, he didn't touch anything after several moves. So, don't question our teaching philosophy, because we are really reliable. If Suchen and Xiao Wu didn't have any feelings about this place at the beginning, then now they do. It seems that Zhang Qi also has two skills. Moreover, based on Zhang Kai's reaction and speed just now, Suchen thinks that it will be enough if he can practice like that. Curator, Coach Zhang, now that the kitchen work is done, no, the exercise is done, what else should we do? Phew, what else are you exercising for? Suchen changed his face so quickly that Xiao Wu beside him was shocked. Suchen, what's going on? You. Xiao Wu, you don't understand. If you want to get the coach's true legacy, you must give up everything you have to please him. I have nothing but to give up my dignity. Suchen. Even facing Xiao Wu's disdainful gaze, Suchen still poured a glass of water for each of Zhang Qi and the curator. That's enough. Xiao Wu looked at Suchen with disdain and rolled his eyes. Just when Xiao Wu was about to look away, he saw an evil spirit floating behind Suchen. The evil spirit was steaming on the top of the drawer. Suchen's back was turned so he didn't see it. But now, Suchen's position is more suitable to kill the evil spirit. If Xiao Wu walked over, the evil spirit would probably escape. But how to notify Suchen? Xiao Wu, start calling in your mind. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 866. Chapter 866. Curator, doesn't your hand hurt? Suchen, there is an evil spirit behind you. Look behind you. No matter what Xiao Wu said in his mind, Suchen didn't even look at him. What's going on with this system? Is it down? Don't even remind me if there are evil spirits. Xiao Wu murmured dissatisfiedly, and was about to walk over, but Suchen looked up at him. At the same time, a gentle voice sounded in his mind. However, what this gentle voice said made Xiao Wu want to be angry. The evil spirits that are within your sight can be seen by yourself. Do you still need to be reminded? However, although Xiao Wu was dissatisfied with the voice in his head, Suchen's voice suddenly came to mind. Where is the evil spirit? Just behind you at 6 o'clock, height 30. You can kill it as soon as you turn around. Xiao Wu told Suchen what he saw. And he also understood. It turns out that communicating in the mind requires activating the system first. However, now Suchen already knows that all he needs to do is give the evil spirit a fatal blow. But the moment Suchen turned around, Xiao Wu saw the evil spirit smiling. This was the first time Xiao Wu saw the evil spirit smiling. That only meant that this evil spirit was definitely not an ordinary evil spirit. Spirit. Suchen, be careful. Xiao Wu didn't shout in his mind this time, but shouted directly. The curator and Zhang Qi looked at Xiao Wu in confusion, but Xiao Wu didn't care, because he saw Suchen just looked at him with the same expression. He glanced at it and threw the small pillow in his hand. Suddenly, the lid on the cage flew up and hit Suchen. It was okay to be hit by the lid, but it was the lid of the cage that was actually steaming the buns, and it was very hot. If it really hits Suchen, he will definitely be burned. Obviously, according to Suchen's speed, he can't escape. Suchen also completely gave up resistance, holding his head with both hands and squatting down. Help me! Xiao Wu ran over anxiously, hoping to pull Suchen away, but it was impossible for him to do it. Just when the lid was about to hit Suchen, he held the lid up with one hand. What are you doing? Isn't it just a lid? Why is it like parting between life and death? The curator looked at Suchen and Xiao Wu with disdain and put the lid back on. The dangerous scene would be resolved in this way. Suchen and Xiao Wu looked at the curator with incredible eyes. There was no pain on the curator's face. The look on his face was just that he looked over with disdain. Curator, doesn't your hand hurt? Why do my hands hurt? The curator raised his hand and looked at the palm and back of his hand, and asked in confusion. Suchen and Xiao Wu looked at each other in surprise again. Xiao Wu stepped forward and looked at the curator's hand. The curator's, although my hands are a little rough, there are no signs of burns. What are you looking at? Wasn't the lid just hot? Xiao Wu asked suspiciously. How could it not be hot? That was a lid that fell from the steamer with boiling water and was still steaming. Not hot. The most unlikely answer became the answer. Suchen and Xiao Wu's eyes changed when they looked at the curator. Even martial arts practitioners are afraid of being burned. Are you here? The curator is not afraid. Just when the curator was wondering why did the two of them look at him with that look, Zhang Qi burst into laughter. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 867. Chapter 867, You won't be afraid of being burned if you get too hot. Haha, you are not really confused about the reason why the curator is not afraid of hot hands, right? Hearing Zhang Kai's inquiry, Suchen and Xiao Wumuna nodded indifferently. Do you think that the curator has an indestructible body, so he is not afraid of being burned? Isn't that true? Suchen asked in confusion. Unexpectedly, the curator burst out laughing when he heard Suchen's words. Ha ha ha, King Kong is indestructible. Boy, do you have too much imagination or are you just playing games stupidly? We are all human beings, there is no such thing as indestructibility. Why not, like iron Tou Gong, iron sand palm, and. Xiao Wu couldn't help but retort when he saw Suchen being laughed at by the curator. The curator rolled his eyes at him and said disdainfully. Do you want to say that there is also iron crotch kung fu? At this point, the curator did not forget to continue to despise the two of them. Suchen and Xiao Wu said goodbye embarrassedly. Headed. Actually, my kung fu is very similar to my iron crotch kung fu. To sum up, they have one thing in common. The more you practice, the less you will be afraid of pain. The more you practice, you won't be afraid of pain anymore. Suchen couldn't believe it. Do not understand. Does the curator mean that if you heat it too much, you won't be afraid of being burned, and if you kick it too much, you won't be afraid of it being broken? But if you heat it too much, won't it be broken? If you kick it too much, won't it be broken? Oh. Suchen finally figured out what the curator meant. Curator, you mean that your hand is dead? No, I don't mean that. I mean, I can't think of words to describe it. Anyway, that's what I mean, you should understand me. Ha ha ha, in fact, you are right. As you can see, I make all the buns in the bun shop myself, so things like moving the drawers and lifting the lids, I do it every day, so my hands have become immune to the heat. To you, this is very hot, but to me it is just hot. In fact, according to what you said, some of the cells on my hands are indeed dead and there is nothing wrong with them. After listening to the curator's explanation, Suchen and Xiao Wu nodded. They really gained a lot of experience, but this also changed their understanding of the gym director and this martial arts gym. Yesterday, they felt that this martial arts gym hidden behind the steamed bun shop was extremely unreliable. Now Suchen and Xiao Wu are determined to stay here. However, Zhang Kai's next words put the two of them into an awkward situation. Xiao Wu, you told Suchen to be careful just now. Did you know that the lid would fall off? Xiao Wu frowned and looked at Suchen and thought to himself. Zhang Qi is usually not very smart, so why is he so careful now that he discovered this detail? How could I know? I can't predict it. Zhang Qi looked at Xiao Wu and curled his lips. Obviously, he didn't believe Xiao Wu's perfunctory words. Zhang Qi wanted to ask more questions, but the curator glared at him, so Zhang Qi had to give up. However, the curator stopped Zhang Qi from speaking, but not from his random thoughts. Because, when Suchen and Xiao Wu looked at Zhang Qi, they clearly felt that he suddenly became frightened in an instant. Just when Suchen and Xiao Wu were about to step forward, the curator dragged Zhang Qi out of the kitchen. Just when Suchen and Xiao Wu were about to chase them out to see what was going on, the curator's rough voice sounded. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 868. Chapter 868 Incredible. Just stay here and wait for the buns to be cooked. When the clerk comes, help the clerk sell the buns. You can eat vegetarian buns when you are hungry, but not meat buns. After hearing the curator's words, Suchen and Xiao Wu stopped. It's not because they are afraid of the curator. Since they have decided to stay, it is better to listen to the curator's words. The two of them were waiting in the kitchen, and soon the clerk came. There are only 2 clerks in the bun shop, 1 boy and 1 girl. The two of them looked young, only in their teens. They should be part-time students. Since we had met them last night, the clerk took the initiative to say hello to Suchen and Xiao Wu. Although Suchen and Xiao Wu didn't know the names of the 2 clerks, the 2 clerks had a deep impression of them. It was because they treated Zhang Qi very badly last night. In fact, they didn't see the details of what happened yesterday for the sake of entertainment, but they happened to see Zhang Kai's unlucky appearance, so they easily thought that the 2 newcomers were pranking Zhang Qi. Well done yesterday. My name is Wang Ji, you can call me Xiao Wang or Xiao Ji. At this time, the boys came to Suchen and Xiao Wu. After all, they were boys and were not as coy and shy as the other girls. When Suchen and Xiao Wu heard Wang Ji's words, they were stunned for a moment and reacted instantly. Judging from Wang Ji's words, he seemed to be dissatisfied with Zhang Qi, and believed that the 2 had persecuted Zhang Qi. The 2 smiled politely. It seems that Zhang Kai's staff is not very good. Why, you don't like Zhang Qi? It's not that I don't like it, maybe I felt that Manager Zhang last night was different from usual, so I felt in a good mood. Suchen and Xiao Wu looked at each other. This Wang Ji is very good at talking. Doesn't it mean that Zhang Qi is different from usual? Zhang Qi makes a fool of himself. It makes him feel good. Isn't this a simple and straightforward way to make him happy when others are unlucky and miserable? The young man is he can talk. Just this sentence made the 2 of them feel a little disgusted with Wang Ji. The 3 of them stood like this, no one said anything, and the atmosphere was a bit awkward. Fortunately, at this time, the girl came over. What are you talking about? At this time, the girl has already put on her apron, and her long hair that was previously scattered has been tied into a high ponytail. After facing the girl's kick, Wang Ji turned around and faced her. Nothing to say, ready, let's get started. Okay. The girl said with a smile. Then she looked at Suchen and Xiao Wu and asked. Do you 2 want to be here too? Of course. Although Xiao Wu was unwilling, he still answered speechlessly. Moreover, we choose the dishes used to make the steamed buns. The girl was very surprised after hearing what Xiao Wu said. Because yesterday he heard from Zhang Qi that 2 apprentices came to their instant martial arts gym, but she didn't expect that the two apprentices would have to help at the bun shop. Although Zhang Qi was there before, he just watched and didn't help a few times. That's why she was surprised that Su Chen and Xiao Wu would stay at the bun shop. After all, in their opinion, Su Chen and Xiao Wu were paid students of the instant martial arts school, not the waiters of this bun shop. And they only came yesterday. The curator asked them to make steamed buns this morning, and they just accepted it, which is really impressive. I feel incredible. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 869. Chapter 869. The evil spirit suddenly disappeared. After all, he and Wang Ji are waiters at this bun shop, and they can make money working here. And Su Chen and Xiao Wu are the ones paying the money, but they are willing to stay here, girls. While I secretly admired my boss's shrewdness, I was also worried about the IQ of these two people. However, this idea did not linger for too long. After the four of them cleaned up together, customers came over to buy steamed buns soon. After getting along for a short time, they also learned that the girl's name was Li Ying. After they got really busy, Wang Ji and Li Ying were able to take care of the guests, so Su Chen and Xiao Wu ran aside to be lazy. Su Chen, did you see the evil spirit just now? Xiao Wu suddenly thought of the scene where Su Chen was hit just now and asked. Su Chen, who had no answer, expressed to Xiao Wu that he didn't know with his doubtful eyes. It doesn't make sense. Why didn't you notice it? Is it because he was standing behind you that you didn't notice? Moreover, both of us have the feeling that the evil spirits are afraid of us because we killed them. And the evil spirit I saw at that time was basically doing that on purpose, and its fundamental purpose was to hurt you. Xiao Wu took off his cheek with his hands, thinking and analyzing carefully. Su Chen thought about it. According to Xiao Wu's statement, you are right. I believe that the evil spirit really exists, but why is he targeting me? Isn't this just throwing himself into a trap? We are the ones who kill evil spirits. When he comes to provoke me, it is just like an egg against a stone. It is very unscientific. Ordinary evil spirits don't have time to run away when they see us. Even if they don't run away like the evil spirit yesterday, at least they won't provoke us maliciously. Su Chen and Xiao Wu both thought that the evil spirit's behavior was very abnormal. If they deliberately provoked the people who killed them, wouldn't that be self-destruction? They were not doing it for revenge. Although they were both evil spirits, except for the relationship between each evil spirit is not intimate at all. Even a group of evil spirits are just brought together by evil spirits for survival. There is no emotion at all between them. By the way, Xiao Wu, did you see where this evil spirit escaped after he did his prank? Su Chen asked. If we knew the location of the evil spirit and could find it, it would be easier. Xiao Wu recalled what Su Chen said and suddenly thought of the evil spirit's sudden disappearance. After the evil spirit created the cage lid case, it suddenly disappeared. I didn't see where it escaped. Disappear suddenly? How is this possible? Su Chen questioned. Train cannot be seen by normal people, but the evil spirit can be seen by him and Xiao Wu. If they can't even see it, how powerful the evil spirit is. So powerful. It would be too boring for an evil spirit to play such a joke on them in a bun shop. Therefore, it is impossible for an evil spirit to disappear in front of them. Unless the evil spirit is hiding in a corner of the kitchen, letting Xiao Wu thought it disappeared. Let's go to the kitchen and have a look, Su Chen suggested. Good. Xiao Wu walked up to Wang Ji and Li Ying. We have been working since the morning until now. We haven't eaten yet. Let's go to the kitchen to eat something. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 870. Chapter 870. I said I didn't do anything, Do you believe it? Okay, you go and eat, leave this place to us, we can take care of it, Li Ying said with a smile. Suchen and Xiao Wu entered the kitchen. The kitchen was no different from before, at least they didn't see any difference. The two came to the place where the basket was placed before. The evil spirit before was right above here. If he wanted to escape or hide, then the best place for it would be behind the cage, that is, the cabinet. Behind the stairs was a long cabinet. Suchen opened the cabinet. There were various condiments and some plates they would use in the cabinet. Suchen and Xiao Wu checked the cabinet carefully and found nothing special. Except for being a little dark, this cabinet is pretty normal. The lighting in the kitchen is not good, and there are no lights in the cabinets, so it is normal for it to be dark. Condiments, various plates, that's it. It seems we were wrong, Xiao Wu said with some disappointment. There was nothing suspicious about entering the cupboard, so Xiao Wu closed the door of the cupboard. However, there was a sudden crackling sound in the cupboard. Xiao Wu looked at Suchen in confusion. With an incredible look on his face. The sound of breaking glass just now came from the cupboard. Why do I feel like something bad is about to happen? Of course Suchen heard it clearly. The sound of broken glass came from the cupboard. Couldn't that be? Suchen quickly opened the door of the cupboard. Suchen and Xiao Wu poked their heads over. At this moment, inside the cupboard it was a mess. Plates, bowls, dishes, everything that could be broken was broken. Suchen, everything was broken when you closed the cupboard door. This is too exaggerated. How could I exert so much force? They are quarreling with each other. Suchen was very speechless. Everything in the cupboard was broken. How much effort it took. But he just pulled the door gently. Xiao Wu looked at a piece of paper in the cupboard. Mess, think about it. You just said that they, I see. Not them, it did it. Xiao Wu, what are you talking about? Sometimes they, sometimes his, who is it? Suchen was very speechless. He was in a very confused mood now. There were only two of them in the kitchen. As a result, everything in the cupboard was broken. Even if he could explain to others what they did, no one would believe it. How could it be broken? A female voice sounded. Xiao Wu and Suchen turned around and saw Li Ying with a shocked face. It turned out that the breaking sound was too loud. Li Ying and Wang Ji heard the sound in the hall. Li Ying hurriedly she ran over to see what happened. As a result, she saw the scene just now. What did you do? So many things are broken, what should I do? I said I didn't do anything, do you believe me? Suchen looked at Li Ying aggrievedly. It was obvious that Li Ying didn't believe what he said at all. How could it be broken if nothing was done? If the boss finds out, his money will be deducted. Li Ying was very anxious, and there were even tears in her eyes. After all, she and Wang Ji were the clerks of the sponge shop, and Suchen and Xiao Wu were just here to help. They couldn't escape if something like this happened. Relationship. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 871. Chapter 871 Rich and Wealthy. The curator is the biggest. Both he and Wang Ji are students working part-time, and the money they earn is not much to begin with. If they are deducted again, it will be even less. Suchen and Xiao Wu looked at Li Ying's appearance and were confused. Not to mention, they didn't break the things in the cupboard. Even if they broke them, what does this have to do with Li Ying and Wang Ji? Why are they being charged? Seeing that the tears in Li Ying's eyes were about to flow out, Suchen signaled Xiao Wu with his eyes, and Xiao Wu walked to Li Ying to comfort her. Li Ying, don't worry, the curator won't deduct your money. We broke these and we will pay for them. Don't be sad. Originally, Li Ying was still trying to control her emotions, but when she heard Xiao Wu's comfort, The tears in her eyes could no longer hold back. The boss will definitely say that we didn't take care of you, so this happened, Li Ying said with a cry of grievance. Hearing Li Ying's words, Xiao Wu and Su Chen were a little puzzled. Although the curator looks very tough, he doesn't seem to be stingy enough to take money from students. Could it be that people cannot be judged by their appearance and their hearts are separated from each other, so there is a side of the curator that is unknown to the public? Li Ying, please stop crying. When the curator comes, I will pay for the money. I will pay in full. I will never let him deduct your hard-earned money. Xiao Wu looked at Li Ying's solemn promise. Aren't they just some plates and bowls? They don't cost much. What did I just hear? Just when Xiao Wu was comforting Li Ying, two people entered the kitchen. Yes, it was the curator and Zhang Qi, and it was the curator who spoke. Xiao Wu, you are quite wealthy. Since you said you wanted compensation, will you pay me 30,000 yuan? Li Ying was shocked by the numbers that came out of the curator's mouth. Li Ying didn't know what to do at all, so she stood there in a daze, motionless. Zhang Qi took Li Ying out of the kitchen. 30,000 yuan, curator, are you crazy? Are those plates worth 30,000 yuan? It's not even worth 3,000 yuan. We thought you were quite a nice person before, but you are too vulgar now. Su Chen pointed at the curator's nose and cursed. Because of his anger, Su Chen even forgot how powerful the curator was, and he himself knew nothing. If the curator took action, he might not even have a chance to escape. The curator looked very unhappy when he was scolded, but before he could get angry, Zhang Qi on the side spoke first. You two brats? Do you really question what the curator said? Don't forget, both the bun shop and the martial arts gym belong to the curator, and here the curator is the biggest. I came here to learn martial arts, not to work as a waiter at a steamed bun restaurant. I am not a little sheep at your mercy. Su Chen pulled off his apron and threw his hands on the ground. Su Chen's behavior made the curator completely angry, and he pushed Zhang Qi aside who was blocking him. Boy, you're looking for a beating, the curator said as he walked towards Su Chen. At this moment, Su Chen was a little panicked. Looking for a beating? How could he look for a beating? He didn't like being beaten. Su Chen regretted it, but even now he regrets it. Looking at the curator's scary look, he couldn't run away from this beating today.